Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Friday. I hope you all are well. I hope you all have had a wonderful week. It is the game preview. Everton taking on Leicester City tomorrow evening, bonfire night. And let's hope that there are fireworks at Goodison Park for Everton tomorrow. 5:30 kickoff on bonfire night, which is absolutely shocking for anybody that wanted to go and see any form of firework display tomorrow evening. But as I said, hopefully Alex Iwobi and Amadou Onan and Adissa Garnagay and Connor Cody and James Sarkowski all put on their own firework display for all of us at Goodison Park tomorrow evening against the Leicester City side, who haven't had a very good start to the season, albeit have had a little bit of an upturn in form in recent weeks. They currently sit inside of the relegation zone. A win tomorrow evening would take them out of the relegation zone if Southampton, Aston Villa or Leeds United or Bournemouth for that sake were to lose their games. I think they'd jump out of the relegation zone if Southampton, Leeds or Villa fail to win, and they were to win tomorrow against Everton. Sitting 13 games played, 3 wins, 2 draws and 8 losses. A record that isn't a very good one whatsoever. However, when you take into consideration that 2 of those 3 wins have come in their last 3 Premier League games, it does show that there has been a bit of an upturn in form for Brendan Rodgers' side. A Brendan Rodgers team that I am still massively surprised he is in charge of, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I think there were a number of situations and a number of occasions in which Brendan Rodgers could have lost his job earlier on in the season. Losing week in, week out to teams and not just losing, but being demolished in games, looking like they had no real plan, looking like they had no real agency, no real intensity. And Brendan Rodgers coming out and saying, things in press conferences such as the man, I hope the owner's behind me, and if he's not behind me, then he's got to do what he's got to do, and all sorts of madness like that seem to scream of a manager who wouldn't be in the job much longer. But to be fair to Brendan Rodgers and to be fair to Leicester, they have turned it round recently. As I said, they did lose to Manchester City last week, but losing to Manchester City is something that I think a lot of Premier League teams will say this season. Prior to that, as I said, 2 of their 3 wins coming in the last 3 weeks. A 4-0 victory away at Wolves the week prior to that Manchester City defeat, and a 2-0 win at the King Power against Leeds United. And even before that, the draw with Crystal Palace at home. They had lost to Bournemouth away, which again was a poor result for them, but beating Nottingham Forest in that big sort of game that was billed as manager versus manager, which is quite ironic because it was built up by the media as whoever loses this game will be sacked. And Forest were absolutely demolished and their manager didn't get sacked. Incidentally, he's had a bit of a turnaround in form as of late as well. But prior to that, Nottingham Forest game, a 6-2 defeat to Tottenham, a 5-2 defeat to Brighton, a 1-0 defeat to Man United, a 2-1 defeat to Chelsea, a 2-1 defeat at home to Southampton, losing to Arsenal, a draw with Brentford. They really haven't had a great start of the season whatsoever, but that shouldn't distract from the fact that this is a Leicester team with quality in there, and this is a Leicester team that only 2 years ago, 24 months ago, we're winning an FA Cup and we're fighting for the European places in the Premier League. Now you can, I suppose, ask the question of, well, what's happened at Leicester, because it's the same manager and it's largely the same group of players. And I think Leicester City at the moment, from the outside looking in, and that's all I can comment from, because I'm not a Leicester fan and I'm not close to Leicester whatsoever. I know we have a couple of Leicester fans. I know Ant typically comes on the channel, so it'll be interesting to see if he pops up during the stream and gives his thoughts. But from an outsider looking in, it's very much seemed like Leicester have had a similar situation this summer to what Everton had last summer, in where they haven't really been able to spend a lot of money. I don't really know the reasons for that, because Leicester aren't particularly a team that overspend or spend a lot of money. We all know why Everton were in the position that we were in last summer, and that was because we'd spent a gross amount of money over the last 4 or 5 years and wasted it on absolute nonsense, whereas Leicester aren't aren't quite like that, so I'm not too sure how they've found themselves in the same position, but they have, having to sell key players in their team, like Kasper Schmeichel, for example. Wesley Fofana obviously went to to Chelsea as well, and a little bit of a different sort of summer for Leicester, I suppose, in the sense that Leicester have always been a team, certainly in recent years, that have lost their bigger players. The N'Golo Kante. You look at your we have Mahrez and players like that who have come through the door and ended up leaving to go on to bigger clubs or clubs with more success rates. And Leicester almost had that Borussia Dortmund blueprint, if you like, of the Premier League, where they'd bring players in almost knowing that they were going to leave at some point in the future, whether it be 12 months, whether it be 18 months, whether it be 2 years. But whilst they were at Leicester, they'd develop massively, and during that development, they'd in turn, make Leicester a lot better. Leicester won the league with Mahrez, Kante, etc. They left, they brought in a new squad of players, they helped them get to a European, fighting for the European positions, winning an FA Cup. A couple of them left, and they had this sort of recruitment style and recruitment plan of bringing in players, improving them, understanding that these players would leave the football club at some point in the near future, but also understanding that if they were to leave the football club, it would mean that Leicester had done a good job and were in a good, safe position. And that's how they've managed to win a Premier League and an FA Cup in the space of 5 years, something that I think I speak on behalf of every Evertonian here when I say we could only dream of. It hasn't quite been like that this season. The loss of Wesley Fofana wasn't a surprising one because, as I said, of the history of Leicester of losing those big players, but losing somebody like Kasper Schmeichel, who there didn't really seem to be a need for him to leave the football club. I know he was out of contract, and maybe that was something that was a talking point. Maybe he wanted too big of a contract renewal, and maybe that was a decision that Leicester's board made in terms of their prices. But he obviously has been replaced with Danny Ward, who, with all due respect to Danny Ward, isn't necessarily the the greatest of replacements for somebody of Kasper Schmeichel's experience and quality and leadership and just solidity within that Leicester frame. Obviously they lost Fofana and they lost other players like Hamza Traoré and Ademola Lookman, fringe players I suppose, but losing that that goalkeeper who's been your sort of stalwart in that season where they won the league and in the season where they won the FA Cup and in all of those seasons of solidity and consistency, it was always going to raise questions. And then there was this overall sort of feeling around Leicester in the summer of maybe they're struggling at the moment to to keep older players. Financially, there was a lot of talk as to whether or not they were struggling, and that sort of outside conversation seems to have seeped into what Brendan Rodgers is trying to do on the pitch. And as I said, they have had a pretty woeful start to the Premier League season, certainly by their standards. And 4 weeks ago, before they beat Nottingham Forest at home, I think a lot of fans were looking at Leicester, and a lot of people were looking at Leicester thinking, well, where's their next win coming from? Because they weren't just losing games but within them, and they were tight and they were competing and they were battling. They were losing games and they were being absolutely demolished. They were being walked all over by teams that you wouldn't really expect to do that to Leicester City. The effort, the desire, the commitment, the organisation just looked completely off. As I said, you have to give them credit where credit's due. They have turned it round. As I said, I've had a couple of really, really positive results in recent weeks. We'll exclude the Manchester City result because, I don't think there'll be many teams will be sitting here talking about this season as a sides that have beaten Manchester City. But a couple of wins, before that will certainly have given them confidence, and I think they'll come to Goodison Park with a lot more confidence now than maybe they would have done a month ago. The reality is, this is a game for me Everton must win. We sat here after Fulham on Saturday and then subsequently on Tuesday when we done the review, and we spoke quite in depth about how results like Fulham, Jordan, a goalless draw with Fulham away and games of that nature will occur for Everton this season, and why they're not necessarily the worst results in the world and the worst performances, because to go away to an informed team who are doing well, who have had a really good start to the season and get a point away from home isn't the worst thing in the world, and Everton are going to have to accept this season that there will be a lot of performances and there will be a lot of games in which that happens, but we make that exception on the understanding that there will be teams that we face at Goodison that we expect to win and that we hopefully do go on and beat, i.e. your Crystal Palaces. And I think that Leicester City fit into this mould as well. Now, Leicester City, as I said, it feels strange because 2 years ago, this would have been a Leicester team that we were sitting here talking, with a little bit more, I don't want to say fear, but certainly a little bit more caution about, because of the quality that they have and how well organised and well managed they've been over the course of the last 4 or 5 years under Brendan Rodgers, who is an extremely good manager. And as I said, the fact that he's still in a job shows how well he's doing in terms of turning that around, and shows the faith that the Leicester board have in him, because had he have been the Premier League the manager at a lot of other Premier League clubs and at the start that he had, he wouldn't still be in a job. But I still think that this is a game and a team that Everton should be looking to beat tomorrow. And, Everton should be looking to exploit. It's our last home game before the World Cup break, of course. We've got Bournemouth next week in the Premier League. We've also got Bournemouth midweek, of course, in the in the Cup. But it's our last Premier League home game before that World Cup break, before Boxing Day, which is our next one. And as I mentioned, bonfire night under the lights at Goodison Park. It would be disappointing for me if we were to come out of this without a win. As well as the fact that, as I said, Leicester is one of those games. And I said this going into Palace, and this isn't disrespectful to Leicester. This isn't being necessarily rude or trying to look down on them, but Leicester is a game that at the start of the season I look at and think at Goodison Park every year, Leicester are the team Everton should be beating. Same with Palace, and I know that's a little bit of a contradiction to what I said last week, because Fulham away are typically a team you look at and you think we should be beating, but then you've got to look at the context of the situation, and that's fine. The context of last week was Fulham are flying at the moment, doing really well in the league, good at home, solid, and Everton are compact and solid and haven't got a lot of quality going forward. Leicester, okay, have had a bit of an upturn in recent weeks, and that's fine, and you of course have to take that on board and take that into consideration, but overall this is a Leicester team that I still feel are another beating away from being back where they were 3 or 4 weeks ago. Now, again, I might be proven wrong, and it might just have been a case of them needing a few weeks to get into the swing of things and needing a few weeks to warm up, and they may be absolutely fine now, and they may go on and have a decent season and be comfortably safe. But I just feel like Leicester is still that one heavy defeat away from the confidence lacking again, heads dropping again, momentum being lost, and being back at where they were about a month or so ago. And there's no reason why this Everton team shouldn't be confident. We're unbeaten in 2, clean sheet in the last 2 games. As I said, that hard 4 point at Craven Cottage last time out, and the last time we were at Goodison, we absolutely wiped the floor with a decent Crystal Palace team. So we should be going into this game thinking, let's go into the World Cup break on the back of hopefully a couple of wins away from home as well, but certainly on the back of a home win in what is a winnable game for me, a very winnable game, despite the fact Leicester have got, as I said, a good side and are managed by a good manager. This is still a team with players like Jamie Vardy, James Maddison, Yuri Tielemans in there. As I said, Keenan Dewsbury Hall, who's come into his own a little bit this season, Harvey Barnes, who incredibly talented. We know the likes of Patson Daka, Wilfred Ndidi, players like that. So, Leicester haven't particularly lost 5-6 players this summer that you think are the difference maker, but they've lost, for me, their most important player in Kasper Schmeichel in terms of what he brings for the experience, for the leadership, and very clearly for goalkeeping quality as well, because, without being too disrespectful, and I'm saying this in before Danny Ward puts in the performance of his life tomorrow, but Danny Ward just isn't anywhere near that level, and I think has been exposed on a number of occasions so far this season, and it's up to Frank Lampard and Everton to do that again tomorrow evening. Now, I suppose the big talking point is, what does Frank Lampard do tomorrow? How does he approach this game? And how do we get at Leicester and how do we attack Leicester? And for me, I would be saying similarly to how we approach the game against Crystal Palace. I don't think there's any real need to sit back and try and defend in this one. As I said, Leicester have got quality, they've got pace on the counter-attack, and they've got ability going forward, but I think Everton should have more than enough confidence in our defensive line to be able to deal with any pace or quality that Leicester have got in the counter-attack. I think with it being at Goodison Park, with it being likely freezing cold, pissing down under the lights, I think we could create a real atmosphere again if we approach this one like we did Crystal Palace, aka getting at them, playing with pace, playing on the attack, putting it on their toes, using likes of Danny Ward's, inability, that's probably a little bit unfair, but using Danny Ward's, what was the word I'm looking for without being too disrespectful? Weaknesses to target, as well as the defensive weaknesses to target as well. Leicester are absolutely dreadful at defending set pieces and have been dreadful at defending set pieces for some time now, despite the fact that a journalist in Frank Lampard's press conference today seemed to suggest that Everton are also dreadful at defending set pieces, which was strange considering Everton have only conceded one this season. I don't know where he got that stat from, but anyway, Leicester genuinely are, poor at defending set pieces, so we should be able to target that. You've got players like Connor Cody who are good in the air, Amadou Onana who's big and should be putting his presence about, Dominic Calvert-Lewin who will no doubt start tomorrow as well. And, again, as I say, for me, coming out of this game with anything other than a win would be disappointing. I can't sit here and lie. I can't sit here and say I'd be happy with a draw. I'd take a draw because, I wouldn't, in the grand scheme of things, look point to point. And if you were to say to me now, Cam, Everton lose or draw, obviously you're picking, you're picking a point out of that. But at the end of the day, I think Everton should be targeting this one to win, and I don't see why Everton can't go out there and win it. There will have to be decisions made by Frank Lampard. Who does he play at right back? Is it now the time to bring Nathan Patterson back into the team? Obviously, we saw Nathan Patterson come off the bench last week. Done well off the bench after Seamus done okay in starting the game. And for me, the biggest decision is who plays on those wings. The biggest issue last week against Fulham was a complete lack of threat, a complete lack of bite, a complete lack of any real quality going forward, and that come from the three of them, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Damari Gray and Anthony Gordon. I know Damari Gray put one good ball into the box, but I'm not willing to sit here and say, oh my god, he's amazing, he's the best player ever, because he's put one good ball into the box, because that isn't the case. The reality is we need more than that, and I think Dwight McNeil at the moment, personally for me, offers us more than what Damari Gray does. Now, some people might disagree with that, but you look at Dwight McNeil's output this season. His goal against Southampton was an excellent finish, but his goal against Palace, for me, I was going to say it's not really being given the credit it deserves. It's up for goal of the month, which shows just how good of a finish it actually is. But amongst Evertonians, obviously a lot of the attention at the moment is given to Alex Iwobi for that flick, and rightly so. It's an unbelievable bit of football, and it's a clip that you can watch over and over again and never get bored of. It really, really is. But I think it's maybe being a little bit overlooked of how well Dwight McNeil actually does for that goal, and in that situation, not just to continue his run, not just to put the ball in the back of the net, but the run in the first place was great. It was a Dwight McNeil, a bit of play from Dwight McNeil that we've not seen before from him in an Everton shirt, picking the ball up, and instead of just looking for a pass, instead of just looking for the easy way out, instead of looking for the easy option, he's picked it up, and his first thought has been, I'm going to drive forward with this. And I said it after the Palace game without talking too much on it and going back on it too much. I said it after the Palace game. Dwight McNeil come onto that pitch with a confidence that we've not really seen from him before, and the reason for that was because we were playing well. We were winning the game comfortably. The crowd were on top, and the crowd were, working with the players, and obviously we're absolutely loving it. And he's come onto the pitch with this air of confidence of, I want to make something happen here. I want to get a goal. I want to create something. I want to, bring a memorable moment so that in this game that everybody looks at and goes, that was boss, that, look how amazing that was. People are thinking about me as well in that. He did exactly that. As I said, the goal is being overlooked because it's a great bit of work by Iwobi, and it looks like it's a flick by Dwight McNeil and it's an easy finish. But actually, for him to pick the ball up where he picked it up, drive past 2 or 3 Palace players. Now, okay, they didn't give him much of a challenge, and I get that. But to dive past 2 or 3 Palace players, get it back to Iwobi, and then continue his run and put it in the back of the net is for me, has shown more for me in that moment that he is capable of being involved in goals than Demarai Gray has done in weeks. Now, Demarai Gray scored goals this season. The Forest goal, you could say, well, Dwight McNeil wouldn't have scored that. I get that 100%, but we're talking about the last 2 weeks here, not a goal that was scored in August. So, for me, I think McNeil starts, and we might be sitting here tomorrow evening having watched 60 minutes of Dwight McNeil not doing much, and then Demarai Gray coming off the bench and scoring, and say, right, Gray should start the next week. And I think we're at the moment in this danger of going from one to the other. And Anthony Gordon is in that bracket as well. Anthony Gordon isn't, he isn't excluded from any criticism. It's not like he's turning up every week and putting in worldies, and it's a case of, well, he's got to start every week. He is in that bracket of 1 week you're saying play him and put him in there, and the next week you're saying he's awful, take him out. Well, not he's awful, but he's played awful, take him out. And look, we all know our biggest issue at the moment. We all know our biggest problem. We all know our biggest weakness is that cutting edge going forward, is that quality going forward, and that's something that we're going to have to find in order to get 3 points tomorrow. And it's something that we did find against Palace, and it's something that we didn't find against Fulham, and we haven't really got that option tomorrow. We haven't really got that option. We need to go out there, and we need to get the 3 points. And as I said, that'll set us up nicely to go into the next couple of away games at Bournemouth, and then obviously go into the World Cup, and we'll be able to adjust where we are. If we can get 6 points out the next 2 games in the Premier League, which should be possible, Bournemouth have had a good start of the season, so again, that will be difficult. But even if we can get 4 points out the next 2, win tomorrow and get a point away at Bournemouth, which again would be similar to Fulham, a decent point away to a team that are doing okay at the moment, then all of a sudden you're looking at it, and it's not too bad. But I think losing tomorrow, even Jordan tomorrow, would be massively disappointing for me. Anyway, let's get straight into some of the comments then and see what people are saying. If you are enjoying this, by the way, please hit that like button. It does only take a second, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Wonderlust says, hey Cameron, what's happening, my mate? What's happening? Pardon me. Bit of a cough. Katie says, come on you Blues, is right, as does Wonderlust. Wormy says, what's going on, Blues? What's happening, my mate? Bloody hell. Got a fly stuck in my throat or something. Wonderlust also says the Foxes took quite some time to get going, but they have managed something. Here's why I don't place bets on things like this. I thought Rodgers would be the first sack of the season. Well, there you go. And as we said, Brendan Rodgers has turned things around. I don't want to say phenomenally, because it's not like they've won 5 games on the bounce and we're sitting here talking about them, completely out of danger. They've won a couple of games. They lost their last one, so it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back in terms of their mentality. And if they lose again to Everton tomorrow, then all of a sudden that's 2 losses on the bounce, and the 2 wins prior to that are forgotten a little bit. But he's done well to buy themselves more time, I think, with the wins against Wolves and Brighton, was it? It wasn't Brighton. It's going to do me head in now. I'm going to have to double check. Wolves away, and somebody will tell me in the comments anyway before I do it. But Leeds, Wolves and Leeds. Wormy says, Philip, what's happening? Phil, you good, mate? Signed some goal-scoring attackers in January. Hopefully we need to press the penalty area. I'm confident we can get past Ward, says Wonderlust. Yep, absolutely, mate, absolutely. Want those points, says David. Wonderlust says, this looks like it could be goals aplenty on both sides, even taking into account how little we normally provide going forward. I don't think so. For the reasons you've just said, we don't provide an awful lot going forward. Now, okay, you could say, well, look at Palace, Cam, it might be similar to Palace, and it might be. But I don't see Leicester scoring, I'm not going to give a number, but I don't see Leicester. I don't see it being a high-scoring game. Everton this season defensively have been brilliant and don't leak a lot of goals. And certainly, the goals that we have leaked in the games we have leaked have been to really on-form, good sides who have got a lot of quality going forward. And Leicester have got quality going forward, but I don't know. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say they haven't got enough to trouble us, because they're a Premier League team, and they're a Premier League team, as I said, that up until last year were challenging for Europe and fighting in the back ends of the cup competition. So they clearly have, but I just don't see it tomorrow. Shots on goal, please, says David, and Wonderless says last season was when we were crap at set-piece defence. Is that what the JNO stats were? Well, that's a bit mad because we're not in last season and we've got a completely new defence to the one that we had last season, so I'm not really sure why that was relevant. But anyway, who am I to tell a journalist how to do their job and how not to do their job? Look, let's get straight into our predicted starting 11 ahead of this one then. As I said, if you are enjoying it, please hit that like button. If you're watching live and you could hit that like button, it would mean a massive, massive amount to me. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. And yeah, let's get straight into it. In goal, Jordan Pickford. Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, he's on number one. Made a couple of really, really good saves last week against Fulham. And, you know, arguably kept us in the game at times when, you know, we could have conceded. And you know, there's no other reason as to why he shouldn't be starting. Back line, I am going for Vitaly Mykolenko, Nathan Patterson, Connor Cody, and James Tarkowski. Now, again, Cody and James Tarkowski is the only real need to talk about them. I know Frank Lampard sort of flirted with the idea of Ben Godfrey being back in training and Yerry Mina being closer. Reality is, even if Ben Godfrey was 100% fit and Yerry Mina was 100% fit, neither of them get into this Everton team. Now, I think we might see Ben back midweek in the cup game, even if it's just to get him half an hour, 25 minutes worth of football before the World Cup to ease him back into that sort of playing football and competitiveness. But yeah, the two centre halves are as guaranteed as anything. Touch wood, you know, nothing occurs over the next 24 hours with them. Mykolenko, again, I think he was excellent last time out. I really, really do. I think his performance against Fulham was very, very, very good. Carried on his form from the previous game against Palace. Again, he was very, very good. And then right back, I am going to go with Nathan Patterson. Look, the reality is Nathan's fit. Now, he was fit last week. We saw him come on for 20, 25 minutes and he done well. And the manager said again in his press conference today, he's fit, he's ready, and it's basically my choice whether I make that decision. For me, hearing those words, he's fit, he's ready, and it's my choice whether I make that decision, it's a simple decision for me. And this is no disrespect to Seamus Coleman, and this isn't me throwing Seamus under the bus, and this isn't me necessarily saying Seamus was awful against Fulham, because I don't think he was. But let's get one thing straight. Nathan Patterson is Everton's number one right back. It's as simple as that. And if Nathan Patterson is fit, and Nathan Patterson is available, and Nathan Patterson is ready, all words used by the manager, then Nathan Patterson should start, because Nathan Patterson is Everton's number one right back. It's as simple as that. Midfield three, same midfield three. I'm going for Onana, Garner, and Iwobi. As I said, after Fulham, a little bit absent, a little bit, you know, less involved as to what they usually are. I don't think we'll see a change. I do think we'll see James Garner play in the cup. In the next week. I don't think he's cup tied from what I know. So I think we'll see James Garner play in the cup. I don't think we'll see a change in the midfield three for this game, especially given how good the midfield was against Leicester and against Palace, and how important this game is for us to go and win. And then front three, I'm going with McNeil, Gordon, and Calvert-Lewin. Now, the reality is, again, there's an argument for any of those three players to not play. There's an argument for McNeil to not play, for Mowbray to not play. There's an argument for Damari Gray to not play. There's not really an argument that any of them are guaranteed a place at the moment. Tom, for me, given, as we said previously, how poor Leicester are at defending set pieces, given how susceptible Leicester are to conceding goals this season, I think Dominic Calvert-Lewin has to start up front. If it's not going well, I think bringing Neil Mowbray on isn't the worst decision in the world, because again, you know, he can score goals if he gets in the right positions. He's not really shown it so far at Everton, but Leicester are a team that have gifted chances to sides multiple times this season, and I've got faith that if Mowbray's given a chance, he'll bury it. McNeil, for me, deserves that chance, as I said. In there, I think the confidence that he could get from that goal against Palace, and then, you know, the home crowd and everything, everyone being up for it, might do him well. And then Gordon Gray, to be honest, I don't really care which one it is, because I think against Fulham they were both as bad as each other. Gordon was very, very good against Palace, and I'm sort of giving him the nod because of that, and hoping that he can put that performance in again. But yeah, that is my predicted starting 11. Let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Whammy says, still don't get why we signed McNeil. Surely could have spent the money better. I still think McNeil will be a good signing for Everton. I mean, we'll wait and see ultimately, but I still think he'll be a success. Coleman shouldn't be number 2. Godfrey probably better as number 2, says Whammy. Philip says, I hope to God we have a plan in place if Jordan has a good World Cup run. The plan should be that he's not going anywhere and he signs a new contract, which I believe the club are in negotiations with him for. So there you go. Look, I don't really think there's much else to talk about. As I said, Leicester are a team that, although have had a really bad start to the season and are looking in a bit of trouble at the moment overall, they're still a club with a manager who's been fantastic for them for the large part of his time there, and a set of players who are capable of winning games of football, scoring goals, creating chances. So they're a team that we should be wary of, but also a team that I think we should be getting at and attacking and looking to beat tomorrow evening. There you go. We are going to leave it there. If you have enjoyed this one, please do leave a like. Massive thanks to everybody for watching in the live comments. I really, really do appreciate it. If you're watching this as a YouTube video, then please do leave your thoughts down below, and we will get involved with as many of them as we possibly can as well. We'll be back with the instant match reaction and the player ratings tomorrow, so don't forget to look out for those after the game. And yeah, as I said, leave a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Massive thank you for watching. Up the Toffees. Let's leave Goodison Park for the final time before the World Cup tomorrow with a massive smile on our faces. Big thank you all for watching, and we'll see you later.